Expansion Sunday. It's a Sunday about expanding His kingdom. It's a Sunday of digging deep inside all pockets. Nah, I'm only kidding. Honestly, I really didn't know what to speak. It's been one of those weeks, especially when you're unemployed, And then when you look at your other side, the provider happens to be not the real provider that God said. And sometimes we find it hard. Because men are built with something within them that is not easy to give in or to give up, but they want to hang on to it. Something that it can be stretched, but they don't want to. Because of pride, fear, and all of the above. That's us men. But the source of us being stretched is none other than God. Yesterday was a day of the Niuean people where I come from. Not my people, God's people. But I know a lot of you know my people as stubborn people. It's the day of the gospel, 172 years since Jesus reached Niue Island. 172 years. And out of that 172 years, they have been stretched to the max. But in between, nothing is gained. And that's my message this morning. Stretch and don't hold back. So, I was asked to share something in 10 minutes to encourage my people and to tell them about God, why the light. This is the day of the light. That's what they said, How the light got to Niue. Yeah, it's good. 10 minutes. Speaking to a group of people that are stubborn in 10 minutes would never get through. And then I asked God on Thursday, what am I going to speak about? 10 minutes is not enough for me. Because I love my people, but I can't get through what I have if I want to tell them something. And I want to do that the same today. Because I don't want to be in here for that long. Need a building. And then on Friday afternoon at about 3 o'clock, in a uniting church, the Reverend called. Look, God spoke to me and said, I'm not the one to deliver the word tomorrow. You have to do it. 3 o'clock. And I'm working on my word for today, and here comes a different arrow. But I asked for it. And yesterday, it was like drawing water out of rocks. Faces was just being faces and everything like that. And I was struggling too because I'm thinking of what I'm going to share today. And I'm also thinking of what I'm going to share to my people. But I blocked one out. And that's why I wasn't sure what I'm going to share today until early this morning. So I thought, it's okay. After the movies, I'm going to ring Pastor Jerry and say, hey, look, I don't think I can do it. Something just come up. It's kind of an emergency. And you know what? When Saya came and said, oh, do you know Rachel passed away? And I said, oh, there's my excuse. I was so tired praying for Rachel. But that's a lie. I didn't think I can do it. But I blocked everything for today and I focused on something so important, salvation and being born again to my people. It was like talking to faces that are, okay, But I tell you one thing, I didn't feel it, what I spoke about. But at the end of the day, when we have a party, there was a guy there who got up and admit and make a change and said that I have the light have just come into me. That it is not about the title or about me. It's about the people, and I want to make a change for the New Wayne people. This is the guy who loves to destroy what God is building for my New Wayne people. That was one. And I said, okay, that must be just a fluke, you know. And then to hear a bishop from the moment get up and said, look, after hearing what the light of Jesus can do to our people, I know that I have to break out of my Mormonism and come and support too. You know? So I went home feeling so good that I got two. They're not just two original people, but they are the power play of paparazzi. You know? These guys can write a Woman's Weekly or a New Idea. And yet they, in front of the people and the church, you know, that they've decided and declared that they will make a change. And that was my Saturday, you know. Then last night, we went out as a group of believers, you know, to watch a movie that we don't know what it's all about. But again, it was a movie that stretched the characters in the movie so bad that it nearly broke marriages and so forth. But you know what? God did it for a reason. And this morning, I want to speak about, can you put the text up, please? I'm still trying to get around this thing. Isaiah 54. This is what God gave me at 3 o'clock this morning. I sat in blank, brain dead, don't even know where to start. With only the idea in my head is to ring Jerry and say, I can't do it this morning. But God put this text in my heart. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent, curtains wide, to not hold back. Lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes. For you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Do not be afraid. You will not be put to shame. Do not fear disgrace. You will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth and remember no more the reproach of your widowhood. Father, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for your people that are here. And I thank you for the willing hearts that are willing to hear your word today, Father. I don't want it to be my word, and I don't want it to be from my head knowledge, Father. I want it to be from you, Father. Use me as your mouth as I speak your word this morning. Amen. 2 words from verse 2 that caught my attention. Stretch and don't hold back. You know, Sunema shared this morning. That was powerful. How can 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread stretch to the maximum and feed 5,000 men? How? And let me tell you, men, when men are hungry, they're not happy. Come on, man, is that true? When men are hungry, there's something that stirs them inside. But look at what 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread can do. Then Tiamu came out. The road of sorrow, the road of grief. Jesus was stretched. 600 meters was like 6 miles or more. He was stretched to the maximum for you and me. But today is Expansion Sunday. It's about being stretched. And don't hold back for a building, for a church, for a place, for a home, for a piece of land, for a warehouse, for something that we know it's there. for something that we can count on and don't have to come so early in the morning and do all the things we're doing. Something that we can stretch out of our comfort zone because we know it's ours. Today is Expansion Sunday. Who's in here to expand His kingdom? Come on. Can I have a show of hands in here? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Church, who's in here for expanding His kingdom? That's so good. But then it comes. It comes with commitment, and it also comes with your dedication and your heart. Let's take a rubber band as an example. It may just look just like a small piece of rubber. And yet when it's stretched, it can stretch. But when it stays the same, it limits what it can do. This is capable of doing more. And so is you, when you're willing to let God stretch you. You see, we don't really know who we are. A lot of times we think we do. Most of the times, we don't know who we are until we get stretched. Stretched from the ways and the things of the world. Stretched from the struggles in life. Stretched from not knowing. Stretched from not seeing. And yet, the Master that holds the other end of this is still waiting to stretch you and me. You see, we're not effective unless we are stretched. No one comes into this world fully successful, you know. And it's really not a magic thing or a work of a genius that we're born successful or being success. But success comes from the challenges of life. Success comes by being stretched and knowing why you're being stretched for. Because a lot of times we get stretched because we think we know, but we don't. And in between that time, it's just building of our character and our identity. You know, there's a woman in the Bible. I love the story about her. She was stretched to the maximum. As a young girl, she lost her parents. You know, she was brought up by her uncle/cousin. Her name was Esther. This is one of the characters I find that was stretched in the Bible because she knew that it is not for her, but it is for the purpose of God's kingdom. You see, in the book of Esther, there was a plot to destroy the Jews and so forth. Oh, I even got a cloth too. T.D. Jakes. It's all right. You know, the king at that time asked for beautiful girls to be in the palace because, you know, kings, they like things good and beautiful. And Esther was a good-looking woman, no doubt about that. Tavi is laughing. You know, when she heard about the plot of what the other side is going to do, she probably was pretty stressed because she knew that things are happening and it's upon her shoulders. She knew that she had to decide because what her uncle is telling her to do means life or death. Sometimes we think that when we are stretched, death is near, but it's not. We're stretched because life is about to burst out of all of us. She knew that other way. She needed to stretch out of her comfort zone and don't hold back for the entire nation of her people, God's people and generation to come, put their hopes on her. She knew that. If Esther 4:14 says, "For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position such as a time like this." Church, we're in a time now, such as a time like this, that we need to come together. Come together in finding a place, a building for all of us. If Kingdom Makers is your church, this is the time. If you're passing by, this is also the time. And if you're still looking for the perfect church, you will forever be looking, because there's none. But let me tell you, in God, we can build a church that may not be perfect, but it can be a home for the community that the church is. You know, that's our purpose. We're here to build. We're here to be a hospital to the community. Not a hospital that you can go get treated, but a hospital that can give love. I've been sitting at that table at the back for new visitors when they come in. And we have to ask, I have to ask, why? How did you hear about Kingdom Makers? And why are you here? What did you feel? What made you come back? It's the love. That's what they said. I met a new couple last night. They've been here, but we haven't met them before. They're in church this morning. They said the same thing, the passion and the love. Today is the day that we turn that passion and love into something that we may not be able to see, but we know and picture that there, out there, somewhere around here, with all our faith bind up together, it will happen. It will happen. It may not be next door. It may not be 600 meters. But when we come together and unite and get stretched to the maximum by God for Him, we'll come out on top. Honestly, we will come out on top. You see, something must need to happen in order for Esther to stretch beyond her ability. And she knew of no one else. She knew. You see, her way of growing up as an orphan child, orphan thinking, she knew. She's been through it. And she knew that for people to go through that again, it's not good. Changes must happen. And she knew she's the one who can do it. Even life and death. You see, at that time, you cannot get to the king and speak to the king in the book of Esther until you've been summoned or commanded by the king to get there. And if you go there alone, just by your own self, you can either be killed, thrown out, or whatever the king likes to do with you. That's it. But you know what? Even if you're not ready to commit to Expansion Sunday into a building fund, we won't chuck you out. We love you, you know. But I pray that God will convict your heart and see the vision of the people and the leaders of Kingdom Makers Church. We're not going to tell you, oh, come on, you need to dig deep and give more. No. The conviction comes from God. You know, Esther knew that only one thing and one person and only one that can change and make a difference, and that is God. So she called a fast. Church, do you know that we've been fasting also? Corporately before for this building, individually our own selves as leaders for this building. It may not happen yet, but God sees everything and knows our heart. Please, when we call a fast, come and fast with us for our building. She knew that God's kingdom is not about her or her uncle. It's not about her title in the palace, but for the generation to come. And church, that's my heart. It's for the generation to come. It's for our kids that are in here, and their kids, and their kids, and their kids, and their kids. It's for them. But we as middle-aged, a little bit, you know, and older generation, we are here to start a foundation of looking into and committing and allowing ourselves to be stretched to the max for the things of building His kingdom, but not in vain. She knew that her strength comes from God. And she knew, first things first, is to do what is right. How about you this morning? Are you being stretched by the church? You can be honest. Have you been stretched by the church? And you're at a place where you've been stretched too much, too far. You need to come back. What about you this morning? What are you hoping for from Expansion Sunday, from this day, from what the Expansion Sunday we have every beginning of the month is about? What are you wanting to see? Do you want to see a picture of a building? Do you want to see something that you can visualize and commit yourself to? But then will ruin the purpose of our faith. Because we are moving with what we see, but we're not moving with what we cannot see, but trust and believe in what God is bringing. You know, even Abraham too. And about, there's so many stories. You know, Esther, Esther is it's just similar to Joseph, because she ended up in a palace for a reason. She saved her people. So was Joseph too. Yeah, I'm trying to save my people. But where are we at the moment with God's kingdom? Honestly, you know, you can sit there and look at me and I'm speaking to you. But if you close your eyes and visualize something that we can move into. For 2 weeks, or maybe 3, we spoke about what we learned from the conference, to imagine to dream, to think big, to be stretched more than being stretched, to give when there's nothing to give, to honor when their honor is required, and to love continuously without cease. Imagine. I imagine a building. I imagine lights and everything like what's happening. Kids' playground. A child care in Kingdom Makers Church. I imagine that too. A lot of things. And I want to be stretched to those things too. You see, Abraham, he was stretched to the max. 25 years being stretched, knowing that nations will come out of him, and not yet are heir to the nations as was in the picture. But there's one thing about him. It's his faith. And that's one thing I'm asking of you today, is to have faith on what we have put aside and what we have decided and what we have shown you for building Kingdom Makers Church. It's not our church, it's God's church. It's God's church. A lot of times we think we can't do it, but yet it's not by our strength or by our might. It's by God's Spirit. He within us can do it. Church, I'm not telling you or asking you to sow or to give, but this morning I just want you to consider the principle of expanding His kingdom here on earth. Consider the requirements and the resources that it must need or required for building His kingdom. You see, we're living in the days of uncertainty and unpredictable. But I know in God, through God, we can make a difference. We can make a difference. Come on, turn to the one beside you and say, you can make a difference. It's so quiet and so loving that you can make a difference. You can make a difference. Come on, give me some bit of convincing this morning. You see, I often think, that's it, Michelle, of course you can. I often think about our kids, their kids, and their kids' kids, the generation to come. Think of how the world is changing rapidly and how they're going to cope with life to come. And I know that they're going to be stretched to the limit and to the maximum. But what I don't know is, how are they going to react or to combat when they are stretched to the changing world? But you know what? When I often think like that, one time God said to me, I hear His voice and said, me, teach them me. Which brings me to the understanding that expanding God's kingdom, His church and His people, gives me hope as long as they grow up in such places and domain like this, like a church, like in Kingdom Makers Church, then they'll be okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? It brings me to understand that if our kids and our kids' kids and their generation to come are to be brought up in a domain, in a place, in an environment like this in Kingdom Makers Church, then I know that my hope, and I know that and hope and with confidence that they're going to be okay. And they're going to be more than okay. But you know, and that's where we sow into the building fund. It may not be hundreds of dollars or something, but we know that it's a place where our generation is going to learn, and they'll be safe, and they'll have a home to run to. A lot of times we can't run to the school hall. The school hall is by booking and requirements to make a booking also. We need a place where we don't have to run anymore, but just to come. Walk right in. And isn't it good to say that's our church? Isn't it good to say that's our church? Thank you. Thank you. Isn't it good to say that we have a church? Yeah. Isn't it good to say that's our church? Isn't it good to say, or isn't it good to hear, is that your church? Wow. How old are you? 2.5, 3 years, nearly 4 years, blah, blah, blah. And you got a church? How wonderful is that to hear those words, huh? Are you with me this morning, church? Are you with me this morning? How many can your church hold? Hey, look, Brother Chris, you know, maximum 500 people, but I tell you what, that's not counting God's angels in there too. Probably over 1,000. How good is that even to know? Do you have a daycare in your church? Oh, yeah, we do. We got a special room for them. We got a special playground for them. These are the things I imagine and hope for. I may not sow in big to it, but I know God will multiply. Isn't it good that when you're somewhere out of the blues, out of the ordinary, someone will walk up to you, hey, look, man, your church looks good. Your church, man, so awesome. I've been to it once. I like it. Come on, people. Or we're just going to think of a school hall that we come in, set the chairs, come and set up everything, and then back into the chairs, and then pull it back and go back home. Then come back on Sunday. Church, I know you guys have not been stretched yet. You haven't been stretched yet. I will show you an illustration after. You see, this is us. This is how we stretch ourselves. But we know, even a sports person, stretching brings pain, but it also brings gain. Stretching is painful, but we can gain from it. This is how we stretch. We are here at the moment, but God is asking for this. God is asking to stretch out. He did it on a cross like that, and yet we're sitting like this. I'm not telling you or asking you to sow. I'm just asking you to consider. Consider where you are. Consider the difference that it will bring. Consider the lives that will be changed. Consider the things that will matter to your children and their children. This is where we are. I'm just giving you an illustration of our building fund. This is where we are. This is where we're supposed to be. We need to be stretched. Stretch to the maximum and don't hold back. You know, Jesus said in Matthew 19:26 that with them it is impossible, but with God it's all possible. Believe that. You can take that to the bank, Pastor Jerry says. Or let alone bring it to our expansion, to our building funds bank. Today is Kingdom Makers Expansion Sunday. You know, the day that we have put aside small, big, whatever it is, for our building fund. Simply for a reason, because we've been praying for a church. We're still praying. In our prayer meetings, we're still praying for a building. We even gone as far as standing on a piece of land. Church, if you don't know that, I was there, I'm telling you, because I was there too. We're moving with faith, hoping from ourselves being stretched to something that we don't see, that it will happen. But we need you. We need you. I know it's hard at times, and I know our pockets are going to be stretched to going without, but we must have faith in God. You know, God is a God of provider. He provides for everything. The same God that told Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, verse 1, it says, I'm your very own great reward. I am your shield. Please consider, because your blessings await you. Not from us as leaders, but from God Himself. Don't hold back. You know, do not let yourself feel that you can't do it because it's not enough what you have now. But you know, God and you are not finished yet. And I know God is not finished with me yet. The best are yet to come, we hear quite often in here. But are we willing to stretch and don't hold back to see that best that is yet to come? You know, a lot of times we're scared of being stretched because of the voices that says it's too much, that says you can't do it. And yet, we're not learning to hear or asking to hear His voice. His voice that will convict you for His work. You know, God is ready to do bigger things in Kingdom Makers Church. You know, in life, reality in life, this can stretch. Don't worry, I won't let it go. This can stretch and stretch. And us, you and me, we allow it. Because look at the room. Look at the volume and the capacity this can give you. And that can stretch you. No limit. That's from us, flesh. It's okay. We've got it. You know, our everyday thinking, our everyday lives, we're not prepared to stretch, but just to be stretched by the things that controls us. The things that we are stuck with. And yet in life, when we were born, there's something within us that we cannot see on this side. We cannot see, and yet the one who holding the other end of that elastic band is waiting for you. The things that when you're stretched by this, you've got limited space to move because He's building you up also. When you're stretched by the one who's holding this, He doesn't need enough elastic band, He knows that when you grow, it will come out each time if you let Him. Whereas for this, you can roam, you can play, you can do whatever you like because you got enough leeway and you got enough ground to play with. And on the other side, you don't want to because it's the things you haven't tapped into. The things that I haven't tapped into. The things that we are afraid of walking into because we do not see it. And we're afraid that if we stretch ourselves and don't hold back for those things, there will be no rewards. And yet if I stick to what I know best, that I can go to the pub, that I can fold it right back as I return home, it's okay. That if I can go somewhere that expansion is not required, but I just need myself, for me, and the unholy trinity of me, myself, and I. That's that side. I know because I was once like that too. I never want anything to do with church tithings and church offerings and church giving to the building. Because that elastic band is so good and gives you more room, and it keeps lying to you that it's okay. You've got enough room and space. You can move around it. But when I have faith and became a new wine like we hear this morning, I want to stretch myself into something that I cannot. God can only give you what you can handle each time. And if you fall off, He will bring you back to Him. He will not let you go. But that one there it'll let go of the elastic band. Are we ready to be stretched this morning? I don't have enough room to go. I don't have enough room. But I know whoever holds the other end is the one who's going to provide for what is yet to come. Church, in closing, today is not about kingdom makers, pastors and leaders, as we say Expansion Sunday. You know, whatever's holding you back, I don't know what it is. But just consider. Please just consider the purpose that we have Expansion Sunday. The aim and the vision that we have forecast. Not only for us in church, but for those that are yet to come. Church, I don't know whether you will consider or not. I don't know whether you want to be stretched or not. I don't know if you are up for it or not. But you know what? I know someone who can help you. If He can help me, I'm sure He can help you. You know. So I pray that you will come to understand and know that it is not about money that we want for ourselves, but it is about having a building and a place to call home for us. You know, Nola, say yes. Are you with me this morning? Maybe I sound a bit too soft. I don't know. My wife often say you have to be soft and be nice. You know. Church, are you with me this morning? Yeah. You know, I did not want to say this, but I sat there this morning and I know God spoke to me. And I know what I'm going to say is going to stretch you. I know that. And what I'm going to ask is going to stretch you. But I know I have to be obedient and ask you anyway. We got 6 or 8 weeks left. Maybe 7. I think we're sitting at about 47,000 or just over. And you know, maybe 2,500 we have left to hit 50 this year. I don't know what you're thinking of, but I know God spoke to me this morning. And I blocked my ears because I know it will stretch you. But I want to ask of one thing. $2,500. Who's in here for the 6 weeks that we have? I know I don't have a job, but I have faith that I can come up with that money. I know I started a business, but I know I will be stretched, and I know that He will come. I know that there are things more important, first things first. And with me not saying it, I walk out of here not feeling good, but I'm asking. This time, I'm asking. If you're with me, at least 20 people, to sow an amount of $150 in 6 or 7 weeks so we can make $50,000 for our building fund at the end of the year. Can I have a show of hands, please? Amen. Can I have those people stand up, please, and come? 20 people I'm asking for the amount of $150 until the end of the year, to hit 50,000 for Kingdom Makers Church. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, Father. Thank you for your children. Today you've made a commitment and you've made a covenant with God that until the end of the year, your pledge of $150 or however you want to sow to the building fund of Kingdom Makers Church. In Jesus' name, I say thank you. Thank you. And please don't leave the country. No. Thank you so much. You know, and church, if you want prayers this morning, stay with me. I will pray for you. Whatever's holding you back, whatever fear of not being stretched you're locked up with, stay with me. I will pray for you. We got our pastors here who's going to pray for you too.